All of the questions I get from friends and family and colleagues, this is one of the most common. How to start a difficult conversation with a friend. If you have ever been frustrated, angry, worried, concerned, fed up, or hurt by a friend, and wondering, how do I talk to them about this? Then this video is for you, because in this video, I'm going to share some key tips for how to start a difficult conversation with a friend and how to see it through the end with hopefully a really good outcome. So, difficult conversations abound, but difficult conversations with a friend can feel especially fraught. So, maybe you've been trying to raise a sensitive topic with your friend. Maybe you're concerned about their drinking or maybe recreational drug use. Perhaps you just felt hurt when they didn't ask you to be in their wedding party and you thought you were closer than maybe you are. Or maybe you are feeling like, I want to be their friend, but I can't also be their free therapist. So if any of these apply to you, then you need to keep watching because I'm going to discuss first why difficult conversations with friends are especially difficult. And then I'm going to offer you 4 tips on how you can make these conversations easier and go well. If you stick around to the end, I'll share with you a key secret I learned a few summers ago when I had literally dozens of difficult conversations with most of my friends. So first, why are difficult conversations with friends tougher than most difficult conversations? At some level, right, we think, gosh, shouldn't they be easier? I mean, this person is my friend. But truth of the matter is that for most of us, they're tougher because the stakes can feel a lot higher. This is somebody we have some history with. It's somebody we care about. And so the cost of it not going well can feel much more dramatic. We might get hurt. We might hurt them. The relationship might get worse. We might lose the relationship. And then secondly, and related to this, right, if we have a difficult conversation with a colleague or with a customer or maybe with a service provider and it doesn't go that well, I mean, it kind of sucks, but we could kind of avoid them probably. But with a friend, it's just much harder to escape. So I want to acknowledge that this is a hard topic for a lot of people. And I also want to say there are things you can do to make this conversation work. And not having the conversation usually is just a slow way to see the relationship eviscerate, worsen, or disappear. So let's talk about these tips. Number 1 is before you go into the conversation, take some time to write out what are the reasons why you want to have the conversation. What are the reasons why it's important to have the conversation? And put that in one column. And then write down what are the concerns or fears you have, the reasons why you do not want to have the conversation. Now, you're thinking like, why am I jotting all this down? You're doing this because I think part of what makes it hard to have these conversations is that we do have this ambivalence. On the one hand, we want to have the conversation, and on the other hand, we're afraid. Putting that down with the reasons actually is our opening into the conversation. It's our way of saying, there's a side of me that feels like this is really important for us, our friendship, for you. There's a side of me that also brings up a lot of anxiety and worry and concern. And yet, I'm hoping we could still have this conversation. I'm imagining you might be feeling really anxious right now, right? And yet, I think it's worth having this conversation. So using the reasons for and the fears of is a really nice opening into the conversation. Second is do what you can to lower the stakes of this conversation. So in other words, you want to be direct and clear about what the conversation is about and what it is not about. Because chances are you have not had conversations like this with your friend before. And so there's a way in which if they're on the receiving end, they might be like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? They'll be feeling some anxiety. And so just kind of saying, this is about some definitely hard issues, whatever the issue might be. I want to talk about my observations of your alcohol use, or I want to talk about a really hard dynamic in our friendship, or I want to talk about a time I felt deeply hurt and what it means. But what isn't at debate is all the good things and all the ways in which this connection matters. And in fact, one of the things I like to say, and is typically true, right, is the fact that I'm having this conversation is a sign of how much I care. In fact, even if the difficult conversation is about ending the friendship in some way or changing the nature of the friendship in some way, and I've seen that pop up a lot, the fact that I've decided to turn this into a conversation is still a sign of my care and concern. Because we all know situations, right, where friends ghost each other. They just stop responding or they never call back. So the fact that I'm honoring this by having a conversation is a way of showing my care and concern. Third, when we're in the conversation, do what you can to avoid using phrases like always or never. And this is particularly important if part of the conversation is giving feedback to the other person about something doing or failed to do that has been a source of struggle for you in the relationship. Part of the reason why we want to avoid using the words always or never is that they tend to be triggers. And truth of the matter is, they tend to be factually inaccurate, right? Even if I say something like, you never show up on time, or you always make me be the first to apologize, it becomes a debate around facts, right? And suddenly the other person says,
Oh, no, no, no. Don't you remember in 2019 on Valentine's Day I showed up on time?
and that's really not what the conversation is about anyway. So as much as we can avoid always and never, we'll be more successful in these conversations. Fourth piece of advice is that whenever we're having a difficult conversation with a friend, one of the things that's being activated, in addition to conversations about who's right and who's wrong or facts and figures, is we're touching on individual identities. When I say identities, I mean stories that each of us tells about ourselves in the universe. So, for example, right, I may think of myself as a loyal friend. I may think of myself as a caring person. I may think of myself as a good listener. When we're having a difficult conversation, typically part of what's making it difficult is that we might be touching an identity trigger that causes a positive response. And one of the things I want to try to do is avoid touching on those identities that will create a negative reaction. And instead, try to trigger those identities that create a positive reaction. So, for example, saying, I know you to be a deeply caring person, and I've seen that demonstrated in these ways. And so at times, this has confused me. Part of what I've done is really said, I know this identity, this thing that you care about, right, which is being caring, is part of who you are and your DNA. Instead of simply saying, when you fail to remember my birthday, and when you never ask me to hang out, and when you talk about me behind my back and with my other friends, I feel like you're just a bad friend. There, what we've done is activated a real negative identity, right? An identity of failure. So I want to say that as best as I could, I followed these 4 steps. But one of the things that can make certain kinds of conversations really difficult is that we really don't know how the other side is going to react. And so the secret that I learned is that the people who were really my friends, it's not that they necessarily were always celebrating what I was sharing with them, but it was this, that those people always showed up for me in the most positive way that they could in their own identity for themselves. And so many times that really surprised me in an incredibly positive way. And so the secret is, if it's a friendship that's worthy of friendship, and you do this with care and concern and skill, people will show up, people will put their best selves forward. And if they don't, and you can really look back and say you conducted the conversation skillfully, you've actually learned something really positive, which is that the friendship you thought was a friendship might not have been as solid and as strong. And that is a really good learning. So if you've been up at night, if you've been wondering, how do I have this difficult conversation? Don't avoid it. Instead, write out the reasons why you want to have the conversation and the reasons why you don't. Use that as your opening. Second, lower the stakes of the conversation. Make it clear about what the conversation is about and what it isn't. Third, avoid using phrases like always or never. And lastly, do what you can to activate the positive identity triggers that person will have. So I'm really keen to learn your lessons and advice on difficult conversations with friends, so I hope you'll drop that into the chat. In addition, I'd be really grateful if you'd be a good friend to me and subscribe to this channel, like this video, and ring the bell. And if you want to keep on learning how to be successful in your relationships, watch this next video. What are good communication skills in a relationship? You know you want to improve your relationships. Keep on clicking, keep on watching.